Hello, friends. My name's host Eric, and I'm the host of Talking with Famous People. I'm here this evening with famous persons Zach Zakatek and Mr. Haberdasher's Plate of Food, who's been a fascinating guest, and also famous person Unify. And we just finished a very long video, an hour and 30 minutes, about, among other things, type actualization and my notion that it's better to view self improvement through the lens of type actualization than any other possible self improvement mechanism, because type actualization suggests, as I interpret it, that you modify your life, not yourself. But I'm interested in segueing from that into any topic that you guys would like to talk about, if you have anything in mind, or if you'd like to just talk
Wait,
about
the
possible
topic is
topics.
what?
I said I would like to talk. I would like to have you guys help drive the topic a bit. If you have any thoughts about what you'd like to talk about, any questions, any comments, or anything like that you'd like to discuss, I'm going to give you some space to sort of talk through some ideas.
I had a topic.
Okay, go ahead.
I basically wanted to talk with you guys about what I mentioned earlier with regard to developing like lower functions as a way of self-development. And what I said before was basically that I felt like just listening into these conversations and things, I feel as though, like, I've always tried to just pick activities that I thought were like basically the opposite of what I was good at. Like, lately I've been doing programming, like video game development, and I basically have been trying to force myself to learn that, even though it's not something that I'm, particularly good at. And but I feel like at the same time I need to not neglect the things that I am good at naturally.
And what sort of things do you feel most comfortable doing? You feel like this is well suited for me?
Well, I feel like I've always been kind of a creative person. So, like, I've been doing this game development thing just as kind of a side hobby for about a year and a half. And I feel like with that, what I'm better at is, 3D modeling, animation, that sort of thing. But what I'm not good at is like programming and scripting.
Mm-hmm.
But like
Yeah, I tried
kind
a
of
little
the
coding
abstract.
myself.
Yeah.
Yeah, I took like a semester in high school for coding, so I guess I get the general idea of what programming may be. But from what I heard of, and I know it might sound unhealthy to do this, but in my opinion, I think you should go after what you are best at, because for all of my life, I've watched YouTube. I was one of the earliest people to get hooked, and I've always aspired to want to do that. But I always figured I should learn to talk better or learn to socialize. But doing something doing what you want to do is more healthier than doing something you don't want to do. It kind of gives you a sense of accomplishment. And so what if you're not a creative person? That's just who you are, and you're kind of just trying to force yourself to change when, Eric said, you should let the world bend to what you want to do.
Well, Zach
Yeah,
Zach
I
Attack,
guess that.
I have a kind of a practical or specific answer to that thing that you were just saying, which is there are lots of people who try the approach that you're taking, which is to try to find a hybrid kind of a thing. I'm interested in being creative artistically using digital media. It sounds like is what basically your interest is in terms of generating 3D models, animation, stuff like that. would be interested in the arty part of it, and you're saying, well, the programming part of it at least gets me near the arty part of it. I would say that your instincts that that's not really what you want to be doing are telling you the truth. That ideally you want to try to structure your life so that you are spending your time doing the parts you do want to do. If you see a clear path in the existing course of action you're on that takes you where you want to go from where you are, then that's one thing. But if it's just taking you further away from where you want to go, then that's another thing.
Right.
You know, one thing that would be a fun project to do, potentially, I've long wanted to have a video that has some sort of, instead of pictures of me talking, it has like stick figures doing something, right? Like, ENTP, and they demonstrate some concept with stick figures interacting. For me, when I try to make my little animation things, which I do sometimes, they are subject to my deep and bottomless failure in visual arts, which is to say, they always look like a 3-year-old made them.
Mm-hmm.
I've had somebody else collaborate with me on doing drawings for a music video I made, and if you are interested in doing some sort of drawing collaborative project with me in which you are able to do the kind of work you actually enjoy doing, and we see how it turns out, at least that would move you towards the right direction because you'd be doing the thing you're doing. See, in my opinion, we spend so much time prioritizing making the money first so that we can liberate ourselves to do what we want to do, and that ends up ends up trapping ourselves into doing what we don't want to do because we become accustomed to and reliant on the money. That to the extent that we can get ourselves accustomed to and reliant upon as little money as possible, it's a good thing, especially if we're young. And to the extent to which we can afford to direct our attention towards work that doesn't produce immediate financial outcomes, but that has a sound foundation for us to understand it'll produce long-term benefits, that work is wiser to be doing than work that is just done to pay the bills. You only have so many hours of energy to attend to a task during a given day. Just my opinion.
Would you want to be a part of it, Zach?
Sorry. Oh, well, I've kind of got a project that I've been working on for about a year and a half, and like, I guess I've always felt very much that I want to do it alone. Like I have gotten another person involved at one point, just because I felt like I wanted someone to make some audio tracks, some music for it, but like I just keep feeling as though I want to do it on my own, and that I work better alone, and what I make is better.
Fair
I
enough.
do it alone, like everything on my own.
Can you tell us a
I
little
sort of
bit
direct
about the
everything
project?
myself, but well, I don't know how much you guys are into gaming, but it's a first-person exploration type of game, and it's kind of got a science fiction setting. Basically, the idea is that the character is kind of alone in this science fiction like world, and you have to explore the planet that you're on. That's the basic premise of it.
From what I understand,
Sounds like the startup of a horror genre.
it normally takes development teams to build a game. It's not normally the sort of thing that one person can do by themselves. Am I mistaken about that, or?
Well, there are plenty of Well, yeah, because there are a lot of games that have been made by one person, um,
True.
or even just like a small team. And I think one of the things that makes that possible is that the technology or the software that's available now is definitely makes it doable. Even if you're just one person, you can make a game that previously wasn't possible to make with one person.
Cool. Interesting. Well, I mean, it sounds to me like you're on the right track. If at the moment you're doing what you want to do and engaged in your a project that's meaningful to you, and you know you want control over it, and you want to maintain that control over it, then then even if you have to do some things right now that you don't want to do, at least you can take solace in the fact that you have other things in the works that you do enjoy working on, and that is your passion, and that those potentially could produce dividends down the road that would allow you to focus more on stuff you do like to do. Do you feel as though you're on the right path right now, or do you feel uncertain about that zigzag attack?
Well, I feel uncertain about it because, like, I know that with the dominant tertiary loops, for me, like, if I neglect my SE, then that would, like, if I don't get outside enough, or if I spend too much time, indoors working on the project, then that'll kind of put me in a bad spot, like, mentally.
Do you see your SE as primarily being about interacting with the outside external physical world, or do you see it primarily about taking action when it needs to be taken?
First one.
Okay. A lot of people view SE as the action focused thing. So INTPs who have SE in the seventh slot, it doesn't mean they're necessarily bad at sports. It doesn't mean they never go outside. It means they have trouble pulling the trigger on things. And they'll procrastinate. They'll think about possibilities because possibilities is their tool function rather than their nature. So because my nature is possibilities, I don't have nearly as much problem with action because SE is my 8th slot function. It's a 7th slot function for INTPs. As your 4th slot, the model suggests you should have trouble pulling the trigger. That you want to, I guess in your instance, you'd want to know, you want to be more certain about your feelings regarding a thing before you take action. And you'd probably, I don't know.
Well, yeah, that makes sense to me, I guess. But, like, I've always thought of it as more, um, like, going out and doing things, like, outside of my own head. Like, not just physically outside of, my house, but, like, outside of my own head.
So, does the ISFP go SI? No. Wait, does the ISFP go
FISE.
FISE? I see. SE, I'm sorry, SE's in your second slot. That's right. I'm sorry. I was thinking
Yeah.
SE and goes with FI, but it's TE that goes with FI as the 1-4. So I was confused there. So okay, your second slot SE. Yeah, you must have probably not very much difficulty at all pulling the trigger on things when it's time to act. Would be my guess. Do you feel indecisive?
Yes. A lot of the time, yeah.
See, I would argue
But,
that you're uncertain, but not necessarily. That's not quite the same thing as indecisive.
right.
I feel as though
Like, there are a lot of
ISFPs.
times where I do feel like I just go out and do things, like, because it feels like the correct thing to do. But, if I'm under any sort of pressure to get something right, then I just, crumble, and it's like, I can't make executive decisions.
What does that look like when you feel as though the pressure causes you to perform badly? Does it look like you put off starting it? Does it look like you start it but you do a bad job of it? Does it look like you can't decide which course of action to take and you tried a lot of different things and you never settle on a way to do it? Or how does that break apart for you?
All three of those things.
All three of those.
Like, I can think of times where I've had to, I can think of all three of those things happening, like, in my past.
So does pressure
When
make
I've
you
been under
feel
pressure.
bad? What does pressure make you feel?
I guess anxious.
If you were going to have an ideal work environment, how would an employer motivate you best to accomplish tasks in the time frames that the employer needs them to accomplish?
I guess by showing me, like, what the reward or the end goal is going to be, and then if I say that, okay, that's something that I want, then I'll work towards it, and I'll be more motivated to.
Interesting. And do you feel
I could
that's
probably
not the,
think of other ways to answer that, though.
do you feel as though that's not the status quo? That's not the way that it's gone. They just tell you what to do rather than what the goal is and let you figure it out yourself, which is what you want.
Could you repeat that?
I'm saying, do you think that in the status quo, employers simply tell you the protocols you're supposed to follow rather than giving you the goal they want achieved and letting you figure it out, which sounds to me like what you'd prefer it to be?
Well, I've had times where I've just been told to do something, and then because I've just been told and not explained why, then I've done a bad job. But then when it was explained to me afterwards, I felt as though I understood it and I understood why I had to do it that way. So yeah, to answer the question, I suppose, like, my employer has always done a fairly good job of explaining it to me. So
Interesting. Welcome, JD. So, the topic here that we're discussing is basically whether or not we ought to try to figure out how to be more effective with our dominant and second functions, or whether we ought to figure out how to shore up our weaker functions, whether we ought to figure out how to become more aware of our unconscious functions, or what's the best way to approach so-called self-improvement or metacognition about the self or whatever. And my position for quite some time has been the balance is not the goal. That our goal should not be, I want to be exactly what's 100 divided by 8? Twelve point something. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm not going to be 12 point something percent each cognitive function, and I shouldn't aspire to that. That's not my nature. I will be bad at almost all of them compared to my stronger functions. So my position is basically that it makes more sense for us to figure out how to realize our nature in a way that is complementary to the universe, given that the universe is often antithetical to our natures. JD, do you have any thoughts on this since you just arrived and I don't believe I've met you before? Unify, thoughts?
Yeah, I'm thinking. And it can be subjective, right? Your approach to what functions you would need necessarily to maneuver through life effectively.
Well, yeah. I mean, I think how that plays out is going to depend on each individual person. To me, the most important thing is to start from the idea that because of flaws and ignorance, because of flaws in the status quo, because of ignorance in the status quo primarily, individuals emerge from childhood having internalized notions that are harmful to them, and that our job is first and foremost to disavow any notions that tell us there's something wrong with how we are or who we are, rather than with what we do. If somebody wants to tell me there's something wrong with what I'm doing, that's fine. And then we can have the argument, and they're either right, in which case I will say, okay, you're right, that was wrong. Or they're wrong, in which case we have a big argument. and, and then at the end, they don't admit they're wrong. So, that's how it rolls. I don't remember where I was going with that, but where was I going with that? I don't remember what I was saying. Lost my train of thought.
I don't remember either.
You know better than me, Unify. Are you sure you don't have ENTP memory? Are you sure you don't have SI in the fourth slot?
I don't know.
What was it?
I can't even remember yesterday's lunch.
Well, this is what I was saying.
I'm still thinking about what 100 divided by 8 is.
The first step is to reject the lies. Okay, that's number one. Reject the lies. And there are so many people out there who will tell you, who want to give you the following reassurance: that they understand what's going on and that they're going to help you, as long as we start with the accepted fact that there's something wrong with you that needs to be fixed. Those people are succubi who come by and they say, here's some temptation. I offer to relieve you of your responsibility for your failures as I define them, in exchange for accepting my reality of who you ought to be. And that's a devil's deal if there ever was one. So when somebody says, here's what's wrong with you, here's how you should be different, here's what's not acceptable about your nature, and whether they say it directly or indirectly, our number one job is to reject those narratives and to say, I don't accept that. And part of that means accepting the fact that you get to figure out how to be more like the way you are that people don't like, not less like the way that you are that people don't like. You get to figure out how to do that even better. And if they don't like it still, that's because they need to shove a pineapple up their ass. I don't know. I mean, look, this is why God equipped us with middle fingers, right? We have to use them. It's important. Because people try to fucking roll up on us and tell us something's wrong with us all the time. It's a lot of different types have this experience. INTPs probably don't have it that much. They get harassed about not getting shit done. Maybe that's like a different thing. They're the person that the authority figure is like dreading going and trying to bust their chops. That's what the INTP is. The ENTP it has a much more volatile existence, and we get told there's something wrong with us in 100 different ways, more times than anybody in the universe probably. I get told something wrong with me. It's like it's a constant parade of people trying to say, what's wrong with Eric? Something's got to be wrong with Eric. Even people who now like to listen to me, like come join and go to meetings, will say, when I first saw you, Eric, I thought you were crazy. Well, why? What made you think I was crazy? I don't know.
Just a little.
Yeah, I don't know what makes people think I'm crazy. A lot of people do. If they want to come and talk to me about it, then they get to have some fun with me. Or more likely, I get to have some fun with them. And they don't like that. So, they don't come and tell me that to my face anymore. But, what they do is they walk around to look for somebody else who's not going to put up quite so much fight about it. They have this disorder where they feel the need to go tell other people what's wrong with them. A lot of YouTube channel people do, like Melissa. Melissa is obsessed with this notion that the only way she can justify having a YouTube channel is if she helps people. Well, I'd like to think that I do some things that are helpful, I suppose. I would like to think that some of my videos, I'd like to think this at least, that I'm committed to presenting a moral approach to the self that rejects ontological violence and embraces the legitimacy of the self. I think at least that. But that's not, I don't need to help people to justify making YouTube videos. And a lot of people will say, well, why do you want to make these videos? And you can't, and supposedly it's the correct answer, the true answer is because I love being the center of attention. And we're not supposed to say that, right? Well, my point is I am tired of us all accepting that some given type won this battle. Some fucking FE type won this battle. And we've all internalized this lie. You know? You got to be cool before everything else. Well, I reject that lie. And I want to do a war against it because that's why I was put on this earth. To do war for what I consider to be just causes. And the only way I can do that fairly is to make sure that the causes I go to war for are actually just.
Do you really think that everyone would be like more productive than what we are now if everyone just kind of did their own thing?
I don't know if we'd be more productive. I think you'd be happier. I know I'm a lot happier now that I'm doing what I want to do almost always. And this is a new phenomenon for me. This is the past year and 4 months. Prior to that, I was working 60 hours a week for years. And I can tell you.
So, like, let's say
Go ahead.
that like your ideals are kind of made known to everybody, and everybody starts doing what makes them happier, rather than, working their 60-hour weeks or whatever. What parts of our society would we lose to that?
Well, let's look at my example. I used to work a 60-hour week, and I worked for somebody. I was the head coach and the director, and I made all the curriculum. I hired all the people. I did basically everything around the place. But I wasn't the owner. The owner did the marketing, setting prices, stuff like that. Now, I was conditioned to be an employee, like most of us are. So I didn't think about whether or not it was economically fair or anything like that. I didn't care. In fact, when I did get fired, it wasn't over money at all. That wasn't my conflict with her. It was over hierarchy. She wanted me to adhere to arbitrary hierarchy I didn't want to adhere to. And she wanted to treat me as though I was subordinate, and I just simply wasn't having it. After all, I built the whole fucking place from the ground up. All she did was market me. So, we had our conflict. When I got fired from that job, I'm still a debate coach. In fact, now I own my own school. And yet, the fact is, since I am not trying to be a businesswoman exploiting the talents of others for my own profit, but rather a businessman maximizing the profit from his own labors, well, I don't have to work very much, frankly.
And doesn't it give you a higher sense of accomplishment if it's something that you've done and it shows progress, and that whatever you're doing actually it is profitable, and doesn't that actually help you out, like, I guess, in a healthy way?
It might help somebody out. It didn't make any difference to me, frankly. I had just as much satisfaction working for an employer and producing good work over there, and I probably produced better product in terms of documents, a lot better, in the sense that I had stuck in an office all day. I ended up making all these fucking documents that I was supposed to make. She's always tasking me to make this document, that document, this curriculum, that thing. So I sit there and made documents all day. Well, great, fine. I was more productive there, but I enjoyed seeing my work go to use. I enjoyed putting together this big thing and saying, "Ooh, look what I made." Yeah, I enjoyed all that stuff. It doesn't make it more satisfying to know that I own the company. It makes it. It makes it. The thing that I take great satisfaction from, if anything, is seeing debaters become autonomous individuals, grow from children into autonomous individuals. And it happens not when they get to a certain age, but rather when they understand debate. Once the kids are like, they understand the proper order of things, where they're the debater, the coach is there to help them. The coach is their helper, and they want the best helper they can get, and if they're not good enough, they're going to fire you because they're the client. When the kids start thinking like that, my job is done. I've done my work now. Now they think of themselves as truly autonomous individuals, and they aren't taking shit from anybody. That's a good deed in my book. But the point is, it's not what I want to do. Does not harm society. Me doing what I want to do, it helps society, because whereas before I was working at this job 60 hours a week, I wasn't doing this. I wasn't talking to any of you. I can make more money working way less hours if I just own the outcome of my own labor instead of selling myself to a slave renter. Renting
Would you
myself
still
to
be
a slave.
making that money if everyone else was trying to start their own debate business?
Well, that's the thing. Everybody needs to try to start their own whatever business. Now, if you're a debate coach and you want to try to start a debate business, well, then my job then is to be a better debate coach, to compete. And if you can't compete in that field, then your job is to find a field in which you can compete. I'm not worried about getting out-coached. I just am not worried about it. I used to worry about it all the time. When I first was successful in coaching, I was absolutely certain it was a fluke. When it persisted and I remained successful, I was absolutely certain it was good luck combined with a fluke. And when it persisted even further, when I hit some circumstances where I thought, okay, now the competition is getting tougher. I was just facing easy competition. What I discovered was I stepped it up. I became a better coach. I didn't try to do that. I didn't plan to do that. Well, eventually what I realized is, oh, I see. It's because you care about it. Most of us spend most of our time in our childhood doing stuff about which we do not care. We're conditioned to it.
I really hate to be the devil's advocate on here, but there are jobs that some people have to do, because there are nuclear power plants, if left unattended, could leak radiation and kill us. There's bus transportation, which could help with people who don't have cars, and there's of course people who need to manage oil or other things like that. And I'm just saying, like, I'm just saying, like, don't everybody just drop what they're doing and go pursue what they have, if that makes any sense.
Well, thank you, Mr. Haberdasher, for protecting people from the very real possibility that they're going to just listen to me, go run right out and quit all their jobs. Now, I know I'm a powerful advocator of my position, but I don't think you got to worry quite that much about everybody listening to me so much. But I agree with you. There are obviously jobs that need to be accomplished that aren't necessarily fun things to do. My position is work comprises too much of a time commitment for most people. That we shouldn't be at work for such a long period of time all day. That we shouldn't be at work 5 days a week. That we should work in little chunks that'll land wherever. But that's because I'm my type. I need a job that gives me little chunks of land wherever and a lot of chunks that are undefined. I have it now. I'm a lot happier than I was. Another type that wants a lot of order, they may want an orderly schedule. But even those people, I think that there's a schedule that they're going to be comfortable with where they can do this work for a certain amount of time and in certain circumstances and be directed at certain parts of the work in a way that considers and is structures the job around the individual and their and what they're looking for in their life. As somebody who does employ people, I want to know how is your relationship with me going to help you achieve what you really want to do later if you're going to be an employee. 'Cause I don't like employees. I don't like to have employees. That to me is I don't want to trap somebody into being having their labors go towards my profit and me pay them to do that less than their worth or less than the total value they make or something like that. I don't like that quality of business. But at the same time, I know that young people especially there's a need for an apprenticeship system that doesn't exist. A desperate need for it because school fails utterly to do what an apprenticeship system does. An apprenticeship system finds the right person to function as an apprentice who is naturally talented at the same thing and teaches that individual the ropes of that thing and how to utilize that skill set to understand their worth as an individual, not just to understand how they make money. It needs to be a
We're not talking about
relationship.
the show The Apprentice with Trump, right?
No, not that kind of
No.
apprentice. I mean, real apprenticeships where if you're entering into some sort of field that requires specialized knowledge, and if you're going to be doing something that's interesting to you, ultimately, there are probably some types who really want to do nurturing stuff. Like I want to be a nurse, or I want to be a housewife, or a mother, or stuff like that. In those instances, it doesn't really apply. But for everybody else, I think it does. That if you're applying yourself to a meaningful craft, that there's a need for guidance that's absent, and that guidance ought to be coming from somebody who's gone through the whole process and is willing and able and interested in finding a mutually beneficial situation in which that individual can guide another individual through the same process.
Where I'm from, we have trade apprentices. Like it's there's a lot of apprenticeships where, like for an electrician or construction person or a mechanic. Like
See,
we
those are
have those sort of
apprenticeships for
apprenticeships, but
employeehood. Those aren't real apprenticeships because they're saying, here, we're going to apprentice you to become an employee. You don't apprentice people to become an employee, you apprentice people to become a master craftsman and own their own labor.
right.
That's what I think apprenticeships should be. But I understand that what you're saying is better than what we have here, which is no accounting for people who don't fit into the NT academics track that society prioritizes. We have nothing for those people here. So your apprenticeships sound much preferable. At least students can direct themselves into non-academic tracks where they're going to be more happy or successful.
Yeah, like I've been told that it's much better. Like, really, I don't know about what it's like in other countries, but here in Australia, I've been told that it's much better to just become an apprentice, like electrician, as opposed to going to university.
Right. Well, because there's an actual skill that has specific concrete utility when you're apprenticing for those kind of crafts like electricity and stuff. When you get out of college with your English degree, uh, you kind of wonder, what's the useful thing I can do for other people with this? Get out of school, your apprenticeship with knowing how to do plumbing. That question never plagues you.
I have a problem with some types. When people say about like ESTJs or ENTJs that they make good leaders, just because they like telling people what to do. I have an issue with that. Because society, I think part of what you're talking about, right, is like investing in yourself to shape the environment around you. But I think with a lot of people, they have shaped society in some way. Our our what we strive to be and what they see society as is combative. It's combative.
I mean, I think that's true, and that the process of structuring your life has to deal with these TE DOM artifacts, TEFE. It's a combination of those two. Some of them are one, some of them are other. That are either protocols that are designed to standardize and make more efficient the behavior of large groups. That's more of a TE approach, or rules that are designed to maximize harmony, or they're justified with presumed harmonizing impacts. Those kind of rules, the latter kind, are the most offensive to us because those rules assume that everybody has a shared sense of what's socially acceptable and what's not, and that everybody has the same basic goal regarding social stuff, but everybody doesn't. My goal in any social setting is primarily, I suppose, to come across well, but that goal can be supplanted if I get annoyed by somebody being stubbornly wrong, as I define it. So, why don't we draw this video to a close here? Any last comments from anybody before we do so? We're at another 41 minutes. Wow. Any last comments? All right. Well, thank you so much for
British guy.
I think he's Australian. Go ahead.
I mean, Australian guy. Okay, so you make games. I have aspirations to be having a voice in game. We should talk about voice in game.
Yeah, I think he means.
Well, I've tried to voice act and I couldn't get any parts in anything, and I'd like it if I could, I don't know, try and be in your game or something with at least my voice.
Yeah. I started it knowing that I'm very limited in what I can do as a single person, and I don't have any money, so I couldn't pay people to be voice actors and stuff. But so I kind of designed the concept for the game around not having any dialogue. So I would honestly consider it. I mean, I asked, and he said, "Oh yeah, I'll do that just because it's And I said, "Yeah, cool. We can." I wasn't going to pay him or anything, but he agreed to sort of do some background music kind of tracks for it. But yeah,
Mr.
I don't have any.
I got plenty of shit I could use your voice for sure. I got all sorts of ideas. I got a million fucking ideas of little things I want to do, which includes little scripted things that usually I have to do all the voices myself. Absolutely, let's collaborate on one of those things. I'll put something together later this evening or tomorrow morning or something, and I'll send you something. I'll make a folder called MH Collabs in Dropbox. Do you have Dropbox?
Well, you could just email me at mrhaberdasher@gmail.com, or my personal email is derpyhooves.
I'm recording, and I don't want you to give out information you then later go, don't say that information on thing. But look, okay, fine. We'll deal with the communication with you later. I got your email address, your Mr. Haberdasher email. If you don't have Dropbox, it's free, and if you just have one folder and not that many files, you'll be able to fit everything in there. The reason Dropbox is preferable is because I can drop something in there and say, here, now you put your audio file in the same folder, and then you don't have to actually communicate with each other. It just pops up in the folder, and you can see where we're communicating that way, But if you don't want to do it that way, that's fine. God fucking damn it. Alright, thanks for watching Talking with Famous People. Party foul.
Bye.
Guess what I kicked over?